Hi, my name is Matt Bremer, and I'm here to talk to you about data storytelling in augmented reality and spatial computing. This is a talk that I initially gave at Tableau Conference 2024. And like all the talks at that conference, they were all preceded by this standard forward looking statement, which basically says don't make any purchasing or investment decisions based on what I tell you about today. So, hopefully, if you're watching this, you're interested in research and innovation at Tableau, because what I'm going to be speaking about is beyond any product roadmap. So what I'm going to cover is first an introduction to Tableau Research, who we are and what we do. I'll also speak about Tableau's roots in research, especially with respect to human-computer interaction, and some of Tableau's prior work going beyond the desktop computer. I'll be speaking about two projects in detail. If you were at Tableau conference last year, you might have heard about or seen a demo of Tableau Gestures. And new this year is some of our exciting work happening in visionOS. And then I'll close with some thoughts on where this work might lead in the future. First, a little bit about myself. I am a lead research staff member of Tableau Research, and I've been with Tableau since 2019. My specialization is in human computer interaction, or HCI, and I'm specifically looking at new user experiences for helping people see and understand data, especially in collaborative contexts. Now, first on my agenda is to introduce you to Tableau Research, in case you haven't heard of us. We are a very small industrial research group, and all members of the team are trained as researchers. In other words, we have PhDs in topics related to Tableau's mission of helping people see and understand data. You can find out more about us at tableau.com/research. You can see biographies of everyone on the team, and over 200 publicly available white papers are there available to download that either we've authored ourselves or contributed to. And these papers go back to the group's inception in 2012. Now, our work is motivated from two different directions. The first is looking at existing customer workflows, the problems and issues they encounter when working with data. And the second is new and emerging technologies. We're trying to determine how they might be applied to seeing and understanding data. Now, this second direction is why we are examining augmented and virtual reality. Now, irrespective of how our work is motivated, we're also active members of the academic research community. We are regularly publishing in academic journals, participating in top tier conferences, and collaborating with professors and their students. Now, ultimately, it's our job to take risks and form opinions on emerging tech trends so that we can better inform our product partners as well as our customers. So, briefly, I'll just want to talk about the origin story of Tableau in research. And if you didn't already know, Tableau was founded out of the academic research happening at Stanford University in the late 1990s and early 2000s, specifically the doctoral work of Tableau founder Chris Stolte, working with his advisor Pat Hanrahan. And together they were applying knowledge from three areas of computer science: graphics, human computer interaction, and databases. And this is all to say that research has always been a part of Tableau's DNA. Now, the topic of today's session is data storytelling and augmented reality and spatial computing. But before I get to that, it's also just worth commenting that this is not the first time that Tableau has ventured beyond the desktop. Let's first go back in time to TC 2015, 9 years, and the launch of the Tableau mobile app for iOS. So not only did the mobile app allow our designers and engineers to think about how to innovate in terms of making vizzes and dashboards responsive or to optimize for touch interaction, it also was an opportunity to leverage location awareness and some of the unique features of the device that enabled us to show data that was immediately relevant to where you were. Around the same time, Tableau also released an iPad app called Visible. And this was also an exciting opportunity for Tableau designers and engineers to really fully embrace a touch first approach to interacting with data. And it's in this spirit that we're continuing to experiment with new modalities of interaction today, especially with augmented and virtual reality. Now, the initial iOS app or the Visible app predate my time at Tableau. In the while all that was happening, I was doing research on visualization beyond the desktop as well, from phones and tablets to surfaces with pen and touch input. And you can find out more about this on my website. And I'm not going to deny that Tableau's investment in mobile and tablet applications was actually one of the things that attracted me to join Tableau in the first place. So outside of Tableau and the product groups, we also have really innovative data fan community that's also been experimenting with Tableau beyond the desktop. So for instance, who you're seeing here is one of our visionaries, Jeffrey Schaefer, who back in 2015 was demonstrating how to interact with Tableau using a leap motion controller. He's hovering his hand above the sensor on the table, and he's able to interact with the, uh, the parameters of this bubble chart. Or more recently, there was a team at Immersion Analytics who came in first place at the 2021 Data Dev Hackathon. They built a Tableau extension that allowed data to be brought from a Tableau dashboard into immersive applications, either for the HoloLens augmented reality or for VR and an Oculus headset. All right. So at Tableau Conference last year, there was a short demo of a Tableau Research project at the end of the Devs on Stage keynote. We've been calling this Tableau Gestures. And it's the first of the two larger projects that I'll be speaking about today. And Tableau Gestures is a way to give presentations about data to remote audiences using augmented webcam video. And who better to introduce it than I'll show a brief clip of the demo from last year. Matthew Miller is giving the demo. But there's also some really great commentary on it by none other than the DataFams community own Tableau Tim.
So let's have a look.
The kind of meetings we all have every day with our webcam on, communicating with colleagues and communicating with customers. And I want data to be infused in those conversations too. And I'm wondering, can Tableau help me here? I think we can. Up here in the corner is the Tableau Sparkle. I simply point at it and check that out. It's data.
I love this every time.
This is a data set about the top countries attending outside of the US, the top international countries in attendance. And I'd like to see what this data can tell me. So I'll simply pinch, bring out country, and place it here. Then I bring out in person.
Now, you probably didn't pick it up in the audio, but the crowd went, ooh. And this is incredible because what's going on here is that Matt is on stage. There's no sort of staging. There's no special equipment. He's using a webcam, a standard webcam on the laptop. You can go watch the conference keynote and you can see he's literally on stage in front of a basic webcam. There's a backup webcam as well in case the one that he was using fails. But nonetheless, it's just a standard setup that anyone uses for Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, all of those. This technology is going to work in that tool, as he himself says.
All right, so with that introduction, I want to actually go back to the origin story of this project. So what's the story behind this? I joined Tableau Research in 2019. And I was really interested in how Tableau is used in real-time collaboration and presentation. And I had been dabbling in some work with large screen touch displays, and I was interested in how we could explore and improve upon some of the experiences, especially for co-located collaboration, when colleagues or collaborators are working in a place like this, like the corporate boardroom. But of course, this was 2019, so not long after I joined, the pandemic happened. And suddenly, all of our collaboration, all of our presentations had to be adapted to an online medium. And accordingly, I had to adapt my own research from studying in-person collaboration to remote collaboration. So this was and largely still is representative of giving a presentation using Tableau today over a teleconference, whether it's Zoom or Google Meet or something else. You have this picture-in-picture experience where you require that your audience divides their attention between your content, whether that's a Tableau workbook or a dashboard, and you. Now, whenever we're co-located in the same room, I can walk over to a screen or a projected display and draw your attention using my body and my body language, especially by using framing gestures. I can use both of my hands, and I can really show you exactly what I want, draw your attention to exactly what I want. The master of this type of presentation, especially in person, but also in his recorded videos, was the late public health expert Hans Rosling. He was known for his amazing presentations about data. And I also have to mention that he was a keynote speaker at Tableau Conference 2014. Now, if you watch him speak about data, whether that's in his TED Talks or his Gapminder organization videos, you begin to appreciate how much of our interpersonal communication is nonverbal. And this is especially true when talking about numbers, proportions, quantities, trends, and any type of quantitative information. And a lot of that gets lost in online presentations, especially when you have a thumbnail video of a presenter off to the side and just cropped to their head. Now, inspired by Hans Rosling, I began a series of experiments to see if I could restore some of that missing connection between a presenter, the data, and their audience. Now, these days, when we talk about AI, we're often talking about natural language processing and generation. Let's not forget that AI also encompasses computer vision. So here I am in 2021 demonstrating a prototype in which I'm using green screen compositing and computer vision in conjunction. Specifically, I'm using a neural network to recognize and classify discrete body poses that I'm taking. And these body poses, when they're recognized, control the playback of a viz behind me and the reveal of reference marks or reference lines. But you're probably thinking, this looks pretty unnatural. The poses are very rigid. I appear very stilted. The discrete pose recognition model was also very brittle. I had to stand in a specific place in the room and it was very sensitive to lighting. I also couldn't see the viz because it was composited behind me, so I had to look off to the side at a reference monitor, which adds to the unnatural feeling of this. So back to the drawing board. So this is our former research intern, Brian Hall, who joined me in 2021 to help me experiment with different computer vision libraries to see if we can use continuous hand tracking rather than discrete pose recognition. And here we're compositing semi-transparent vizzes in front of me instead of green screen compositing them behind me. And all this was like an early prototype behind Tableau Gestures. So at this point, I'm going to actually give a demo of the latest version of Tableau Gestures, and I'll switch over to a different tab here. So hopefully you're seeing me in full screen now with some markers tracking where my fingers are. And you're seeing our familiar Tableau sparkle over here on the side. And I've just revealed some data fields in this data set. They all pertain to global poverty trends. So I'm going to pull out country into this drop zone here. And I have a interactive spinnable globe here. And I'll also drag cluster onto this map. And so what I've done is just categorically clustered some of these countries together ahead of time. And the colors represent how similar they are to one another in terms of how their poverty trends manifest over time. Now, while a globe like this allows me to set like a familiar spatial context and draw your attention to places like larger places on the map, it's harder for me to direct your attention to smaller targets, to say if I wanted to point at Switzerland, for instance. So one of the things we've added this year to Tableau Gestures is the ability to swap out one viz for another. So snap here and replace the viz with a tile map, which is now going to give all the countries the same size, but they're going to retain their relative spatial position on the map. So the other thing we've added is be able to zoom in. So let's now zoom in to North America and Europe. And now I'm able to pretty easily point to places that were pretty small before on the globe, like Switzerland. Another thing we've added this year, and I'll add a line chart to show it, is some of the interaction around temporal data. So I've just drawn a line chart that has the average poverty rate for all these countries shown in the tile map. I'll also similarly add the cluster information to this line chart. So I want a separate line for each of the 3 clusters represented in the tile map above. And now when I point at a country on the tile map, I actually see it highlighted in the line chart as well. So just as I was able to zoom in before on the map, I'm also able to zoom in time as well, like being able to zoom in this period between 2005 and 2010. Now I'm able to point out like specific trends in this period, like how Latvia has this up and down poverty rate over the course of this 5 years. Or similarly, I can pan to the next 5 years and show how its neighbor, Estonia, in the course of just 1 year, jumped its poverty rate almost 5%. And just as I was able to zoom in, I'm also able to zoom out. So some new vizzes, some new functionalities, some new interactions added to Tableau Gestures since it was first shown last year. And that's just a brief glimpse of what is possible with this medium. All right, now back to the rest of the presentation. Okay, so in addition to continuing to innovate in augmented video with Tableau Gestures, our research team has also been collaborating with our colleagues in design, engineering, and product to work on something really exciting with respect to augmented and virtual reality. And that has to do with visionOS and Apple's Vision Pro. So if you haven't already tried a Vision Pro, or if you have only seen promotional videos of it, I have to say that it's truly a remarkable device and really a leap forward relative to other devices that I've worked with in the past that are either augmented reality or virtual reality. The interaction is very different and the visuals are really incredibly well done in terms of their visual fidelity. So truly a leap forward in terms of the overall user experience. Now, what have we been doing with visionOS? Well, before I show you what Tableau for visionOS looks like, I want to first set some set baseline and contrast it with Tableau Gestures. Both of these could be described as augmented reality experiences, but there's some notable differences between them. First, with Tableau Gestures, all you need is a webcam. Whereas Tableau for visionOS, you need a device that runs that operating system, which is currently just the Vision Pro. Next, Tableau Gestures is intended to give presentations and tell compelling stories about data to a remote audience. In contrast, Tableau for visionOS is currently a single-user data exploration experience. Now, another big difference is that interaction in Tableau Gestures is based on overt hand gestures that are simultaneously acting as communicative body language and functional control over a visualization. Meanwhile, Tableau for visionOS is primarily controlled based on where you're looking, your eye gaze, as well as some finger taps, and that's pretty typical of visionOS apps. We still also use a few gestures here and there, especially for scrolling or rotating content. Finally, Tableau Gestures, as you saw, is actually pretty easy to demo just with a webcam. But for Tableau for visionOS, it's actually pretty difficult to capture the user experience without you putting on the device yourself. So it's difficult to actually capture it from somebody else's perspective. So if you're able to try it out yourself, or if you have a Vision Pro, we do have our Tableau for visionOS app in Apple Test Flight now, so you can try it out yourself. But in the meantime, let's take a look at some video footage of a demo of the Tableau app for visionOS. Like many people and organizations around the world, I've been taking a greater interest in greenhouse gas emissions over the past few years. I was recently reading this Time magazine article about air quality around the world and the relationship between air quality and CO2 emissions. And this reminded me of a great CO2 emissions dashboard on Tableau Public by Prasanna Ratnam, which I must say looks great in the Vision Pro. However, existing dashboards like this were published before visionOS came out, so it's not optimized for gaze and tap interaction, or there's no use of 3D volumes. So now let's instead look at emissions data in our new Tableau app for visionOS. Upon opening the app, I simply need to look, and then tap my fingers together to control it. I select the Global Emissions Workbook, and with that, a beautiful visualization is floating before me. I can see already that the United States leads the world in terms of emissions, followed by China, and then several other developed countries. Just as in Tableau Desktop, I have familiar controls for sorting. So we just saw some basic functionality like comparing and sorting measure values. But so many of our questions when we're working with data refer to time. So let's look at another visualization to continue this analytical journey. I use the controls at the bottom to switch to a line graph, and the controls at the left to switch to the top 5 countries. Now, I can scroll through time. The United States spent much of the 1900s as the lead emitter, but as we enter the early 2000s, China jumps to the top, surpassing the emissions of the United States. So we've seen gaze, tap, and some gesture interaction already to compare measure values over time, but what about geospatial data? So this is where we've looked at and embraced that some of the medium of visionOS and really rethought how we display spatial data. Let's take a look. Here I have a beautiful and immersive 3D globe floating in the foreground before me, with Tableau data on top. I've used the controls to the left to filter to all of the countries, and next, I'm going to change the mark type from choropleth fill to 3D spikes. Now, as I spin the globe, I see the massive spike of the United States' total emissions over this entire time period. What if I want to change my data now to see a different field in the globe? So I'm going to use the controls, the left. I'm going to change from CO2 to population. Next, we can see that India and China have lower emissions despite their very large populations. This means that per capita emissions in developed countries is still essential to the story of how we reduce emissions and address global warming and air quality. Now, if I want to see multiple vises and fields together, just as in Tableau Desktop, I can do so with a configurable dashboard. Here, both vises contain the country field, so I can answer questions about a country's emissions and their population levels without having to switch between views. And just as I would in Tableau Desktop, I have linking and brushing across these vises. So when I select a mark on the globe, it's highlighted in the bar chart. and vice versa. So, with all that and that ability to link between different 2D and 3D vizzes in a dashboard is just a first look at what is possible in our Tableau app for visionOS. Now, if you were at the session at Tableau Conference 2024, after I introduced these demo videos, I asked people to turn to their neighbors and ask each other, when would you use an application like this? Or when would someone in your organization use an application like this? So instead of turning to someone beside you now, let me know in the comments of this video, when would you use an app like this? Or when would someone in your organization use something like this? And try to set the cost of these devices aside. There's likely going to be more affordable devices in the years to come. So let me know in the comments. Now, with the time that remains, I want to talk about where we can go from here in terms of Tableau for virtual and augmented reality. Now, this is the more speculative part of the research talk, just to speculate on where this research might go. In working on both Tableau Gestures and Tableau for visionOS, we've realized that there are really 5 levels of this augmented or extended reality experience that we could devote our research and development to. And the first of which is the as-is experience. Tableau's existing products do look great in Safari on visionOS, for instance, but they're not optimized for eye gaze interaction. So what could we do with that? Well, we can start by converting selective UI elements. We might take filter controls or parameter controls and optimize those for interaction in extended reality. Or we might selectively adapt vizzes. If we detect that a workbook or a dashboard has a global map, maybe we offer to convert that into a 3D globe. So we call these levels 2 and 3, respectively. Now, level 4 is representative of the experience that you saw in the demo videos that combine native 2D and 3D vizzes that are anchored to these interface panels. Now, level 5, though, is perhaps most intriguing, but also the most difficult to envision, building totally immersive 3D experiences that place data in a virtual environment, like this free-floating globe right in front of me on the left. And some of our data fan community have also been experimenting with this by taking Tableau public content and viewing them in multiple immersive arrangements in like an immersive environment. Now, a related question is that once we get to levels 4 and 5 is how do we author content or construct dashboards or visualization experiences? Should we be building these in a desktop application, using a simulator, kind of like we do for mobile applications, mobile dashboards? Or do we need to think of an environment that is within the spatial medium? Do we build it in a headset? Also intriguing is how people could collaborate or give presentations to each other in extended reality. So we might think about how do we turn our visionOS app, which is primarily currently an individual exploratory data analysis experience, into one that was built for communication and presentation. So Apple in their promotional material for the Vision Pro have demonstrated the capability to communicate using these VR personas, these avatars that bear your appearance. So whether you're giving a presentation in Keynote over FaceTime or collaborating around a free-form whiteboard, it's interesting to see how these experiences might translate to a Tableau experience for presenting a Tableau workbook or a Tableau dashboard. I'll also note that there's an incredible academic community working in this space, in this field that's come to be known as immersive analytics, that we draw a lot of our inspiration from. Now, if I were to survey the academic research in this area, it would take another talk in itself. But in the meantime, I want to shout out this team from Northeastern University who's put together this really amazing resource, this catalog of immersive analytics research over the years, called the iadesign.space. They bring together so many different research projects here, a lot of examples have pointed to, a lot of videos, and we'll certainly be watching this space in the months and the years to come. I want to shout out all of the team members at Tableau who contributed both to Tableau Gestures and to the visionOS app. Both were truly a team effort across product, engineering, design, research, and management. I also want to give a special thanks to our Gestures evangelist and an early adopter, Andy Cockreeve. With that, I want to say thank you again for watching. If you do have questions or comments, please leave them in the comments of this video. And if you want to try out Tableau for visionOS, and you have access to a Vision Pro yourself, you can join our test flight program now on Apple Test Flight by going to the URL in the middle here. You can try out the app with some demo data, contribute some ideas, and help us find issues. And if you have general comments or ideas about Tableau's products in general, the link on the right will take you to a more general survey. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at mbremer@tableau.com, where I'm happy to respond to your questions and comments about this, or you can leave comments on the video here. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the other side.